You might know Chris Craig from social media platforms like TikTok and YouTube.
Hey boss, the technician messed this one all up. You're gonna have to back flag them or something. I don't know what you want to do with this. This customer's mad right now. They're hot. Oh, well, what's going on? Why is the customer upset?
Kind of got started on social media because I realized that there's a definite training need. I saw a lot of unfortunate turnover with service advisors. One store I worked in, we lost, 14 in a year. And I said, there's something that could be done for this. There's no training out there. I'm looking online. I don't see it. So I started creating my own content on social media, just talking about the industry. And I started telling stories, hey, I ran into this today. This is what I did to overcome it. And it caused some traction.
Why is there this back and forth of you're going under the bus, now you're going under the bus? Well, the original comment actually had the answer there. It's because the advisor was trying to save him or herself. And it happens the other way too when the technician is trying to save him or herself.
And this led to Chris becoming fixed operations content owner at RockED.
So everything that's in our app, which is a training-based platform, a short form, micro-learning, curriculums, 1 to 3 minute videos, take 1 or 2 of those a day, spoon feed it to yourself over the course of the week, learn about your brake sales, your tire sales, overcoming objections, metrics, all this different stuff for salespeople as well as service advisors. Now I work on curriculum and content every single day, and I get to do what I love to do, which is help train and coach and mentor the people of the automotive industry.
And Chris wrote a white paper where he surveyed 804 automotive professionals in order to help assess where technicians are in the most need of training.
This study right here, got me, and I can't believe I'm saying it, but I will be speaking at NADA about this study right here.
In this episode of the Multi-Point Inspection Podcast, Chris and I will do a deep dive into the white paper. Chris, if you just want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, what you do. Sure, no problem. Chris Craig, for anybody that doesn't know me. I have an extensive background in the automotive industry. I've worked a lot of different jobs in it. I started out in high school, in the 10th grade of high school, my sophomore year. I attended VOTech for automotive technology, mechanic work, technician work. Graduated top of that class, which wasn't a huge feat, there wasn't too many people in the class, but I did graduate top of that class, and that's what kind of got me interested and sprungboard me into college. That was my next step. I earned my associate's degree in automotive technology, later earned my bachelor's degree in automotive technology management. Along through that journey, which was a pretty lengthy journey, I also joined the military, did all that stuff. I'm still in as an Army reservist. I've served over 10 and a half years now. I worked as a technician at an independent shop. I did everything from oil changes up to head gaskets and engine rebuilds and axle replacements. Everything you can think of, name it, I've done it, either in a professional capacity or just on my own time as a hobbyist on my own vehicles, do my own repairs. I also worked as a parts retail manager for a retail parts store. So I got a little bit of customer service experience. That was kind of like my foray into that. After I graduated college and wrapped up all the responsibilities I had as a commissioning officer out of ROTC, I actually started as a service advisor, and I started at a Toyota store. I worked later at a Ford store, had some time at a Chrysler store, and I went back to a Ford store and ended up in the Lincoln side of that store. So I've got some experience with luxury, some experience with imports, some experience with domestics, and I got to work with a lot of different professionals from all over the place because some of those stores were in the Northeast, a lot of those stores were in the South, so I got to see some different flavors of the industry. And from there, I kind of got started on social media because I realized that there's a definite training need. I saw a lot of unfortunate turnover with service advisors. One store I worked in, we lost, 14 in a year. So I saw a lot of turnover, and I said, there's something that could be done for this. There's no training out there. I'm looking online. I don't see it. So I started creating my own content on social media, just talking about the industry. And I started telling stories, hey, I ran into this today. This is what I did to overcome it. And it caused some traction. And I've done that to this very day. I've started in 2022. I have about 116 plus thousand subscribers on all platforms, primarily on TikTok. YouTube's growing. I just recently started with YouTube. Saw some pretty exponential growth there. I'm approaching, I think, 6,500 subscribers there. Just posting shorts. I'm not really doing the long videos, though I do have a few. Everything else is on TikTok. I'm over 107,000 followers there. Daily content all comes from the commenters. Got a great community going. I've met a lot of great people. All my friends combined, we have millions of followers, and we all have the same goal, is just to help the automotive industry. And that's what brought me to today, where I am working with RockED. I am their fixed operations content owner. So everything that's in our app, which is a training-based platform, short form, micro learning, curriculums, 1 to 3 minute videos, take 1 or 2 of those a day, spoon feed it to yourself over the course of the week, learn about your brake sales, your tire sales, overcoming objections, metrics, all this different stuff for salespeople as well as service advisors. They actually found me on social media, brought me on as talent, brought me on as talent again, brought me on as a contracted individual for a year, and then hired me full-time as their fixed operations content owner. So now I work on curriculum and content every single day, and I get to do what I love to do, which is help train and coach and mentor the people of the automotive industry.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. The RockED, I'm new to it, but just what I know, it's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool idea, you know.
Yeah, it's really cool. I mean, we like to say it's like masterclass and TikTok kind of combined, right? It's exactly. Short form videos. We bring in industry experts. I mean, that's how I got to know them, is they brought me in as an expert to help create some content and do some of the camera work with that as talent. But sometimes, like, some people just don't either have the time for the camera aspect or don't feel comfortable with it, but they have a wealth of knowledge and experience right there in their head and their mind, and we'll bounce ideas off them and have them help us perfect our curriculum and our scripts. What are we missing? What could we add? What is your experience? And we're basically, you know, when you work, say if you're from where I'm from, Pennsylvania, you work in one dealership for 4 straight years. That's the only little experience you get. But there's people in Florida and California and Texas, Tennessee, and all over the place that have a wealth of knowledge and experience as well that you may never actually get to see. But with our app, you can actually see it because we pull all these people together. It's like the Avengers of the automotive industry, pull them all together and create this really great content and curriculum, bite-sized format. So it's not like you're watching an hour-long video and kind of like zoning off. It's 1 to 3 minutes. Short, to the point, actionable. You can take one video, and you can go out and do your job in a different way just from that one lesson, because it's one lesson per video. And it's engaging as well. Interactions to help you practice those skills. And once you've completed X amount of videos, which are part of what we call a journey, which is a larger topic like overcoming objections specifically for tires, for example. You know, there's like, I want to say 10 or maybe 11 guides in that. And you'll learn like little pieces, little nuggets of that information. But once you have them all, you sort of start to master that entire concept. And then you can take it and go from there.
Yeah. Yeah, it reminds me of, and I could be totally wrong in this. It reminds me of, because I haven't checked any of these out yet, but have you heard of the Great Courses? I think that's what it's called.
I don't think I have.
It's anything you want to learn about, right? So like Logic Pro is the DAW, the DAW that I use to record music as well as the audio version of this podcast. Well, they have Great Courses on Logic, you know, and I'm thinking it's probably bite-sized because you can write a book on what I don't know about Logic. So I'm sure they have to break it down, but it seems, anyway, it's just a brilliant idea. I wanted to ask you 2 things that are not on the outline.
That's fine.
How long have you been in Tennessee?
I moved in Tennessee around August of 2019.
Okay.
So I've been here for quite some time now.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, for the audience, he's in Murfreesboro and I'm in Jackson, so that's we're familiar with each other. So it's.
Yep. I actually pass by him once a month on my way to drill for the military because I drill out that way. So.
Second question has to do with the military. Which is more challenging, the military or being a service advisor?
Definitely the military. Definitely the military. The commitment, the things that are expected of you, the tasks that you'll undertake, the challenges that are going to be thrown your way. There's just so many more sides to it as opposed to being a service advisor. Being a service advisor is tough. It is really, really tough. Yeah. But when you walk out the door and you're clocked out, you're clocked out. But when you're on orders or active duty or anything like that, it's 24 hours. It's any time of the day. I mean, if I were on orders right now and I get a call at midnight, I got to go. And it's being on your A game all the time. And there's so many different angles and aspects that you have to consider. You know, in the military, like, for example, when we train service advisors, we train them in customer service and product knowledge and the importance of maintenance. We also train on those kind of civilian ideas in the military, but we also add the element of there could be an enemy, right? So there could be a hostile element that's trying to prevent you from doing those things up to the point of like actually taking your life. So you have to train on that aspect as well. So there's just different layers to it. I would say the military is an incredible organization. I encourage anybody to at least join in the capacity of a reserve or National Guard, just for the experience alone. The benefits are great, but the experience alone, but certainly is, in all aspects, definitely much more of a challenge, at least for me.
Yeah, that was a little bit tongue-in-cheek question, because I hear how grueling being a service advisor can be. So,
yeah,
that was a right answer. I'm sure. Okay, so you want to talk about the survey, and if you want to give just a brief synopsis of it, but tell me why the survey.
Yeah, so the survey, I don't want to say happened by accident, but it wasn't like I woke up one day and I'm like, got to do a survey. That's the answer. It came about with some conversation. Like I said, with RockED, we create all kinds of content and curriculum for our service advisors, our salespeople. And we sort of started discussing, like, hey, what about our technicians as well? And that's sort of what I do on social media, because I was a technician and I also was a service advisor. A lot of my content creator friends on there are technicians, and we bounce back and forth with things all the time. I actually communicate with them offline, on more of like a one-on-one basis whenever I'm working on content. Like, hey, what do you think about advisors doing XYZ from a technician perspective, just to get their idea. I never worked in a dealership as a technician. I worked in independent, so I never got that flavor. So what I try to do is I try to bridge that divide, right? If you have an advisor and you have a technician and they're not jiving, not connecting, not meshing, productivity falls apart, right? Because that advisor is the advocate for the customer, and they're also the representative of the technician. If you take that in between out, it's like you just collapse the bridge between two cities. They can no longer go back and forth with resources and information. So you have to have that bridge. And oftentimes that relationship between the technician and advisor is broken down. Sometimes there's some hostility back and forth, some misunderstanding back and forth. The goals are completely opposite. Sometimes you have opposing pay plans. There's a lot of reasons why these two may not work together. So I'm always aiming to explain the why behind these best practices and procedures for not only technicians, but also service advisors, so that they can understand why the advisor might be moving in this way and why the technician might want you to move in this way, and why it's important to communicate and start to actually work together. Because as you work together, and especially in my experience, because I've worked with technicians and had success and had failure, and I learned the hard way myself, the more oriented we are on the same team, the higher our productivity goes. Which obviously, when you're commissioned, like, flat rate, or you're earning a percentage as an advisor, your pay is going to go up. But ultimately, your customer service is going to excel, and your customers are going to be much happier, and you're going to have a much more success as a service department as a whole, as a shop as a whole. But your customers are going to be satisfied, and that's ultimately the goal. It's a customer service industry. Some technicians don't like to hear that, but if we didn't have customers, all we'd have is a bunch of cars with no owners to work on. You can work on them, but you'll do it for free because there's no one to compensate you for that. So you've got to have the customer with the car. We have to take care of both.
Right. Let's, and he's probably going to come up a few times. Are you familiar with Joshua Taylor, Prince Trainers?
Yes, I've been on the show.
Okay.
Great guy.
Cool. Yeah. By the way, he posted a thing on LinkedIn today where it's Guest the Podcast Studio.
And, I saw that walking in here. I didn't get a chance to read it.
Yeah, one of them was mine in the slideshow. So, anyway, there's my claim to fame for the week.
There you go.
All right, let's talk about the survey.
Sure.
What makes a technician successful in today's automotive industry?
Yeah, so let me explain where these questions came from. When we started discussing training material for technicians in the form of video content, the question came up, can we even do that, right? Because the technician's work is so technical, so hands-on. I went through tech school myself. I worked as a technician. There's no way I would have ever learned everything that I know about a vehicle by just watching videos about it. So we can't teach somebody how to change a head gasket with 1 to 3 minute videos. So what can we do? Soft skills is what came to mind. It's I consider a bit of a buzz term, but soft skills are those I want to say less physical skills, right? It's your ability to manage time would be a soft skill. Properly document would be a soft skill. Teamwork would be a soft skill. Communication would be a soft skill. I don't particularly like the term soft skill because it makes it seem soft. I think they're very important skills. But we explored, I decided to explore, is this something that, modern technicians should focus on, or is it just all technical knowledge and vehicle knowledge and diagnostics and procedures and stuff like that? So The question was presented to myself by myself, is this something a technician actually needs? Well, I don't know. Every time I end any of my posts on social media, I say, like, always your thoughts, because I want a conversation in the comment section, because I don't know everything, you don't know everything, but together we might just know everything, right? So I wanted to bring the industry together and I wanted to discuss this. So a survey came to mind. But what do I ask, and how do I ask it? How do I do it in a way that I can actually quantify it? If I ask a bunch of open-ended questions and I get 700 responses, how am I going to ever quantify that data into a percentage and actually learn from it? So it took some time. So I started by coming up with some things I wanted to know, and I met with 11 different industry experts. Joshua Taylor was one of them. I met with my old professor from college. I met with a couple of service managers, a couple of fixed operations directors, some shop foremans, 11 in total. And what I did is I ran them through this series of questions. And that first question you asked was one of them. But I asked it open-endedly. And they all gave me their responses. And I picked out of their responses commonalities. And if two different experts said the same thing, like willingness to work, for example, that became an option for the rest of the survey takers once the survey was made to actually answer. And I did select all that apply because I wanted to know how many agree and disagree with these experts. So that's sort of how these questions sort of originated. So with this first question, what makes a technician successful in today's automotive industry? Every response that was on there was like 11 or 12, just select all that apply. You could pick them all or pick none. Those were agreed upon answers from at least two or more industry experts that I interviewed on a one-on-one basis. In the top 5 from that question was willingness to work, willingness to learn, time management, thoroughness, and attitude. And they were like the first two, willingness to work and learn. That was over 92% of the population said that willingness to work is what makes technicians successful in today's automotive industry. It might seem obvious, but it is primarily what's one of the things that's pushing a technician toward success. And I've seen a little bit of that in my own experience. I've seen technicians that are willing to work and clearing 100 hours flat rate a week. And I've seen some other technicians that, will kind of kick the tires and say, I don't get enough hours, but there's no wrenches in the hand, right? So you have to work to earn. So there is an element of truth there that's rather obvious, but maybe it's not so obvious. The second place was willingness to learn. Over 91% agreed that the willingness to learn is important to successful outcomes in today's automotive industry for a technician. And that's obvious because technology is changing so rapidly. We have the emergence of EV. We have all these different fuel types now. Technology is changing constantly. You're seeing all kinds of new stuff in vehicles. No longer are the days that we're just working on mechanical things, mechanical fuel pumps and things of that nature, and coolant and power steering fluid is a thing of the past. It's electronic drive-by-wire, all this different stuff. There's several computer systems in every vehicle. When I was in tech school, I had to learn binary code. I had to actually learn some of the IT stuff. I had to learn electrical theory. I had to learn HVAC. You think about all these different professions, right? There's people that are specifically coming to your house just to fix your AC. There's people coming to your house specifically just to look at your electrical system. On a vehicle, we have all those same systems, but it's one professional that's handling all those systems simultaneously. So the willingness to learn is very important because we all don't know everything about all those systems, and those systems are always improving and changing. So you have to be willing to continue to learn. So you have to have that humbleness to say, I still have more to go. Even though I'm an A-Tech, even though I've been doing this for years and years and years, I still have more to go, and I still have to continue to learn. Time management was the third place option there. And time management, of course, is very important, especially in a larger dealership, larger shop. You're juggling several repair orders at the same time. Time is money, we'll say that. And when you're working on flat rate, you don't get paid to walk to the key box, to walk to the parking lot, to drive the vehicle back, to go to the advisor, to ask this question, to go to the parts department and back. So to streamline those sort of activities where maybe I do a loop, right? I'm on the key box, the advisor, repair order, back to the car, back into the shop, and then I maybe do that loop again. Just find a process that works so you're not doing this in like a star pattern. You're doing kind of like a circle, right, to save that time. It's those little things that count. It may not save you but 5-10 minutes on this job, but 5-10 minutes on every job per week equals hours. So that time management factor is really important, not only for technicians' time, but for efficiency in the shop, satisfaction of customers, and it's also important to your advisors who also have to manage their own time. And the last two are thoroughness and attitude for the top 5. Thoroughness is throughout this entire study very important. Being thorough, double checking your work, test driving the vehicles. If you diagnose something, you say that's the problem, it's the ABS. Double check and verify that. Be thorough in your work, because If you don't have time to do it once the correct way, you do have time to do it twice the correct way, right? So if I don't take the time to verify my work, verify the repair, I will have to go back and do it twice. And especially on flat rate, that gets a little messy. And that kind of plays into the last piece, which is attitude. And that just chalks up to basically having an attitude that is conducive to success in the automotive industry. So just positive mindset. Don't drag, don't complain. Be positive, carry yourself in such a way. Those were the top 5 answers there. And I know I'm going on, but I will mention that the bottom in favorability for this question, what makes a technician successful in today's automotive industry? I threw this in there. No industry expert ever said this. I threw it in there because I was curious. ASE certifications, less than 15%, so 14.7% of experts, 804 individuals in the industry, professionals, agreed that that's what makes a technician successful. So ASE certification is not a popular outcome.
Yeah, you can take these answers really in any field. It's kind of a success for life thing if you think about it. I mean, time management, attitude, willingness to learn. I mean, that these are just insert occupation here, and that is a formula for success. And again, like you said, it may seem obvious, but we don't always do that. When I was younger, I had a buddy, and he always thought that way about efficiency, right? Time management. And his catchphrase with that was like, I'm saving steps, right? Let's save some steps. And for some reason, when I was younger, I always thought that was laziness. And of course, as I got older and as more is put on you, man, you can't do it any other way because you're retracing steps a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And like you said, time is money. Number 2, what are the most common areas that today's technicians should improve themselves to better achieve success?
Yeah, so question number 2, when I had first kind of posited it, it was very successful in number 1. But what I was seeing this question as is more of a question of what can you do to get better? Like the first one was what is a characteristic that would be conducive to a successful technician? But now, what specifically should a technician focus on today to improve themselves, to become better in the industry, to grow their own careers? The top 5 from top to bottom for this was willingness to continue learning, then technical knowledge, attitude, adaptability to industry changes, and then thoroughness. So you're already kind of noticing some commonalities. Attitude was already popular. Thoroughness was already popular. Continue learning is close to willingness to learn, so it's very popular. And willingness to continue learning was the top. 76% of the population, 611 people out of 804, agreed that is the most important thing that a technician should improve themselves in to better achieve success. So continue learning. Don't stagnate. Don't get stuck in 2007 with that model of vehicle. It's 2024, and there's a lot of new technology out there, and it's important to keep up on that stuff. Also continue learning. If you're in a dealership, recalls come out. You know what I mean? Different warranty procedures come out. It's good to know and study up on those things so you're ready and standing by to take care of those things. Technical knowledge was the first in the knowledge stratosphere for a popular answer. I will note that you had mentioned something about this kind of plug and plays for every industry. And the reason behind that is there's 3 primary competencies for a professional for success, right? The first one is attitude, which is primarily what we're finding here in the study is attitude-related things. That's your willingness to work, willingness to learn, thoroughness, attitude itself. That's your attitude stuff. Behavior is the other one. Behavior is a little more tangible. It's your communication skills, your time management, your cleanliness, your professionalism, that behavioral stuff that you can change about yourself. It's also adaptability to changes and change management, things of that nature. And the last one is knowledge, which technical knowledge does represent. Knowledge is like your information. What do you know about your field? How much do you know about a car tire? How much do you know about the cooling system? How much do you know about how an engine runs and operates? How much do you know about the ignition system, electrical theory? What we found in this study overall, and I'll go back to this question, was the area that technicians need help the most is attitude. That's the area they need the help the most, which I think makes sense because we don't talk about that as much, especially not in tech school. Behavior was second place. That's those change management, time management, things of that nature. That's kind of stuff you pick up along the way, but there's no specific training on that. The area where they needed the least amount in technical knowledge is the only piece of this entire survey that we'll talk about that actually errs to the side of knowledge. is what technicians do know, because that's what they learn in tech school. That's what they do every day. They have the knowledge down pat. They are the SMEs, the subject matter experts of vehicles. So they've got that. Now, it is rated here as second place. It's at 68.5% of the population agree that technical knowledge is where they will improve themselves to better achieve success. But that does make sense, because you have to continue. It plays with that continual learning. You have to have technical knowledge, and you have to build on that knowledge, and you have to keep that going. You got to keep snowballing that. Attitude was third place. We already know what that's all about. Adaptability to industry changes, which was an interesting one, because change management's difficult. Nobody likes change. And when the industry changes, like, for example, we just had the major CDK thing. That was pretty big. We had COVID a couple of years ago. Big changes in the industry came from that. Salespeople felt it. Advisors felt it. I was a service advisor all the way through COVID. I had just moved to Nashville from Pennsylvania in 2019. COVID took off. And I was kind of like a new service advisor as well. I'd only been writing service for about a year and a half. So I'm kind of learning my craft a little bit. And then a worldwide pandemic kicks off, and the industry changes rather rapidly. Our procedures change. We can either adapt or quit when that occurs. So adaptability to those industry changes, especially for technicians in general. Like, for example, with COVID, their procedures change, especially in my shop. Clean before, clean after, all this extra stuff, wearing gloves, wearing masks, that kind of stuff, be able to adapt to those things. And that comes from skills that are born of change management, which is a trainable trait. We can actually train on how to adjust yourself and orient yourself to manage change effectively. Thoroughness was number 4 at 58.2%. We've discussed that. And then the rest of those are the later choices. And I'll mention again that at the bottom of this barrel, 10% of the population, only 80 people out of 804 agreed that ASE certifications are the key to improve themselves in success. So ASE certifications is still sitting at the bottom of favorability in this, which I just sort of anticipated, but I threw that in there because I was just generally curious for my own sake.
Perception is not always reality.
And, there's this perception that the dealerships are more expensive for everything. And InteliChek kind of confirms that that's not the case.
InteliChek helps dealerships become aware of where their prices stand in regard to their competitors.
And InteliChek does a good job of giving us that pricing data to confirm that we're in the market.
And this allows dealerships to make their customers aware of their competitive pricing.
I placed 2 placards in the business center so they could see that while they're over there working on computers. I also placed it in our coffee area. We have a glass wall there, so when they walk in, as they're putting their creamer and sugar in their coffee, they're going to look up and see the pricing for our pricing as well as our competitors.
Introducing InteliShare. InteliShare contains all of InteliChek's promotional tools that you can use to promote your favorable prices, including InteliAds, the printable flyers that you can show off in easel displays, InteliMedia for your digital media boards, and InteliWidgets, so you can show off price comparisons on your website and even let your customers schedule from the widget.
Just having access to that data that they're able to provide gives us a good plan of how we're going to proceed.
Call 877-827-7273 or go to InteliChek.com to find out more about how the InteliShare Series can help you grow your business. Let's see, what qualities best indicate that an inexperienced new hire technician will succeed in the automotive industry?
Yeah, so this is one of my more favorite questions, because this got at the thing that I was kind of caring about the most, which is the entrant technician, the brand new technician, that person fresh out of school or fresh off the streets coming in to change oil. I saw so much turnover when I was writing service with those individuals, and I rarely ever saw one move to main shop and actually grow in their career. Of course, I didn't spend a ton of time with some of these people, but it's just not something that I personally saw often. So I was very curious about this. So at the top, again, is the willingness to learn and ask questions. As a newcomer, that's very important. When you come from school, when you come from tech school, you're at the top of your game, right? You know everything. You graduated school, you got this nice piece of paper, and then you're changing oil, and that's difficult for some. So you kind of have a chip on your shoulder a little bit. Not everybody, but you feel like you know some stuff. You've rebuilt engines, you've done transmissions, you know electrical theory, you aced all your tests, you got the paper, you graduated, and you're fresh into the shop. Still be willing to learn and ask questions. You don't know everything. You have a lot of knowledge, but you don't have any experience. So learn and ask questions is the number one. And I think that's why over 91% agreed. The willingness to work also plays into the third place attitude. That's number 2 and number 3. Willingness to work kind of surprised me a little bit on this one, but not so much. It ties into, actually, I'll just give you the 2, 3, and 4. 2 is willingness to work. 3 is attitude. 4 is attendance. All kind of mold together. Attendance is the one that actually super surprised me because, you got a new job. You're moving into the automotive industry. You're coming out of school or whatever, everything like that. You'd think attendance is obvious, but apparently that's a quality that a lot of people are looking for. So potentially that's a quality that a lot of new hires are lacking. And I kind of played with this on my own social media channels in an unofficial way, and it seems to be an issue that some entrant technicians don't. And I will say punctuality was also not in the top 5, but popular there. So being on time and attending work as you're supposed to are characteristics that indicate that a technician is going to succeed. Seems rather obvious, but since it's so important to the people that took this survey, it seems like it might be an actual problem. And that plays into attitude and behavior again. And those are things that are not trained on in technician school. So it may seem rather obvious that you would have to have those characteristics, but maybe nobody's telling these people. Maybe that's part of why we're not seeing higher levels of retention with these entrant level technicians. The number 5 most popular, which is, I think, my personal opinion, if I were to take the survey, I think this is super important, but 67.3% agreed. Ability to adapt to automotive culture. And that goes back to, you come from tech school, that's a different culture. You're a senior now, right? You climbed the ranks. You spent 4 years or 4+ years getting to this point, or 2 years, or however long your schooling was. Mine was 4. But you get to the top of the food chain there. You're the top. Everyone's coming to you for answers. Everyone's looking at you like, I want to be that guy or girl. I want to get to where they are. They're graduating. And then you go like this and you go to work, right? And you have all these technicians that have been doing it for 20, 30 years. Some of these people that are coming out of school haven't even been alive that long, for as long as these people have experience. So those technicians may have forgot more than those new technicians actually know. So you get into those situations where that's a major culture shock. You go from the top of the food chain straight to the bottom of the barrel, and you got to climb all over again. And that change is difficult to deal with, and that culture is difficult to change with. And it's not just the shock of going from the top to the bottom. It's just a different culture in general, the working area and the school area. It's two totally different environments. So that change is hard to deal with, but it's also hard to deal with the fact that you're going from the top straight to the bottom. And that's where the bad attitudes might come into play. That's where the attendance might come into play. Well, they don't even care about me anyways. They're just making me change oil. I'm better than this, so I'm just going to come in whenever I want because it's not a big deal. That's the attitude, the behavior. Those are the primary things. And as a matter of fact, yes, there's actually nothing in the knowledge stratosphere, in the knowledge capacity that these professionals agreed on that said is the top 5 most important things for a new hire technician to actually show. So they're not actually looking for higher levels of technical knowledge. They're looking for higher levels of positive attitudes and a higher level of behavior, meaning time management and things of that nature. So this question I think is very telling. I think it's the area that we need to look at is these entrant technicians. Part of in the beginning of the study I referenced from TechForce, they were estimating that 406 new automotive technicians would be needed by 2027, and that's for operational turnover. So that's not the shortage. That's just how many people are going to retire by 2027. So we're already going to need 406,000 entrant technicians to fill those shoes. In addition to that, another 60,000 for industry growth. There's going to be new positions opening up. So you're looking at 466,000 entrant technicians we're going to need to bring into the industry and train and retain by 2027, in addition to the deficit that we're already seeing, which was estimated to be over the next 5 years around 800,000. So deficit plus industry need for turnover and things of that nature. Entrant technicians are very, very important. So that's why this question to me is so telling and important, because these are the things, if these are the things that our professionals are looking for and what they're seeing for, these entrant technicians that are actually going to stick around and succeed, these are the things that we should be training on and ensuring that these people have in their characteristic set to ensure the highest level of probability for everyone to succeed in the highest degree possible.
Yeah, the starting at the coming out of school at the top and the start, again, there's another plug and play, but I'm going to use sports.
Yeah.
That's the high school phenom, right, that goes to college, or even worse, man, go straight to the pros out of high school. There are very few Kobe Bryants who can make that transition and be at the top of the game because you don't have the experience, right?
Right.
And I can see where that's a bummer, man. But it's kind of a fact of life, no matter what. It's the whole big fish, small pond thing, and then you get in there, and there's always somebody going to be better than you, have more experience than you, and you just have to grind it, man, and start laddering up, right?
All right.
Do you think? And I don't want to belabor this because I'm loath to say, as I get older, these kids these days. Do you think with the attitude, the punctuality, the attendance? Is there, and I don't know your age, but I'm pretty sure you're younger than I am. Is it a generational thing? Is it a trend, do you think, just anecdotally?
So I'm 30. I was born in 93. That makes me a millennial. It makes me a young millennial. I was right on the edge there. Gen Z, I think, started, I want to say 97, 98. So I was close, right? So I'm still a millennial, but I'm one of those different ones. Same thing was said about millennials couple years back, that the millennials, this generation, just doesn't want to work. They're just totally different than us. They got these cell phones and this internet, and that's all they care about. They stay inside a game all day. It's just, and I wasn't around, but for like Gen X and boomers before that, I'm sure the generation before them probably said the same thing. So I think this is just like a reoccurring kind of thing. And what I've noticed, and I can give this an example from the military side of my career. I was in command for 32 months at a company out of Pennsylvania. And when I was in command, we'd get new soldiers fresh out of basic training. And the new soldiers we're getting fresh out of basic training were 18, 19 years old. At the time I was 20. I was actually the youngest commander of this unit in this unit's history, and I still am. Nobody's broke the record yet. I was 26 when I took over. So I had an age disparity between myself and these newcomers, as well as my older non-commissioned officers. Some of them were pushing 50 years old. So big age difference there. Different Army when they came in, different Army when I came in, different Army for these Gen Zers when they came in. A lot of people saw them as having bad attitudes, poor outlook, low levels of effort. And in some individual cases, yes. But with good leadership, what I found is we simply pull the good stuff out of them. And when you have different generations with different upbringings, like for example, we work with people all over the world in the military. I've served with people from all over the place because they'll come for citizenship or they'll come to the United States and want to serve out of passion, all that stuff. You have to work differently with different people. They have different backgrounds, different experiences, different opinions, different skill sets. So you have to kind of mold the experience for them. Not so much that you change the DNA of it. But you have to work differently with these people. Same thing with generations, right? Gen Z people, kids, whatever, probably not kids anymore. You have to sort of work with them in a way that's more conducive to their generation. And I don't mean using like hip terms or anything like that, but they just communicate differently. Think about it. Like I grew up without the internet. I didn't have it until like 2010. I didn't even have my first cell phone until I was like 16, 17 years old. So I had what you would call maybe a normal childhood all the way up through. I didn't have access to great levels of information. These kids do. They see it online every single day. They get on their cell phones and they're watching videos, and you can learn from that. So they have a greater wealth of knowledge. They have more rapid access to information, and I think they feel that they should be higher value than what you're perceived with at the start of things, because they're watching people their age take off on social media, for example, and have great success. I don't even consider myself having great success, but I posted a couple of videos and my life changed trajectory very, very fast from that. So yeah. I think that Gen Z, that generation, I think what it is, and I'm not a professionalist at all, I'm just speculating. I think that they just see more value in the individual than previous generations saw in the individual. And I think that we have to treat that a little bit differently. But overall, you can solve every single bit of this with leadership. Every single bit of it. It's a leadership issue. 100%. If you have a generation of people coming into your shop, into your workplace, anywhere you go, and you're not able to gel them into a team, an effective, cohesive team, that's a leadership problem 100%. I wouldn't blame it on the generation, because that would be catastrophic if we had a generation that was completely unproductive. I don't foresee that. I don't think that that's the thing. I think that maybe we have a generation of maybe less than effective leaders, and that's what's causing the disconnect between the workplace and the younger generations.
Number 4, rate the frequency of deficiency.
Yeah, so this was a scale of 1 to 5, rarely to always. How often is a new hire technician deficient in their level of the following areas? Those areas were technical knowledge, industry knowledge, motivation, effective communication. So this is still like a question about entrant technicians. When they come in, how often are they deficient in one of these 4 areas? And they had to answer all 4 of them. So you could either say rarely, occasionally, neutral, sometimes, always. Now, the first 2 were gimmies. I threw them in there just because it was technical knowledge and industry knowledge. I anticipated that they would be lower in those areas. They would be more deficient in those areas because they're brand new. So their technical knowledge would naturally be lower. Their industry knowledge, because they haven't been in it, would be lower. And that showed true because most of the population overwhelmingly said sometimes for those. So sometimes they come in with good knowledge. Sometimes they have some knowledge of the industry. But most times they could be more efficient in those areas. And they'll learn those areas. So that's not too concerning. The next 2 are what very much interested me. Overwhelmingly for motivation, overwhelmingly for effective communication, the most popular response was neutral, meaning I don't know. I don't know how often my new hire technicians are deficient in motivation. I don't know how often they're deficient in effective communication. That was telling to me because the way I saw it is the only way for me to know if my new entrant technician is deficient in motivation or effective communication, I have to be communicating with them. Because if I'm not communicating with them, I don't know their motivation level. And if I'm not communicating with them, I don't know if they can communicate effectively because we have to communicate to figure that out. Very much after that was occasionally and sometimes. So basically the population was saying for these 2 questions, I have no idea. I don't know if they're deficient in motivation or effective communication. So I decided to break the data down further. And what I did is I split it up and I took leadership positions only. So fixed operations directors, managers, general managers, shop owners, anybody that had a leadership title in the survey, I took their data and set it aside, and I did the same exact question calculation. And what I found was the exact same pattern. Industry leaders in this survey agreed, I shouldn't say agree, lean to neutral, saying I don't know how deficient my technicians are, my new hires are, in motivation and effective communication. So this is some accidental data that I stumbled across because what it says is that the leaders have no idea. They don't know if the new hire technicians can communicate effectively, and they don't know if they have struggling levels of motivation, which tells me there could be a communication flaw between leader and new hire technician. They might be hiring these people, putting them in the quick lane or the lube rack or whatever we're calling it in this particular shop. And then there's no FaceTime after that. There's no communication after that. And that might be part of the culture shock. It might be part of the steep entry to the industry. It might be part of the roadblock to where they can't climb the ladder and get into the main shop. There's no leader engagement according to this data. And it kind of airs to what we had just previously spoke about with the Gen Z and leadership issue, how I was kind of speculating that that's a leadership issue. Part of that speculation comes from this because we have a group of leaders that are saying, I actually have no idea. I have no idea if my new people can effectively communicate or if they're motivated. And that could be a big telling thing, an indicator of why it's harder to retain entrant technicians. That communication is important. They need feedback. Am I doing a good job? How do I know if I'm doing a good job? If they get information, they start to effectively communicate back and forth. You can also coach on that. Hey, when you have a ticket like this, make sure you're talking to this person, verify here. There's training for that. But the motivation comes from, hey, the guy that hired me, the girl that hired me, the boss, actually cares enough to talk to me sometimes and ask me how things are going and give me some pointers and stuff. That's a motivating thing. So if you're communicating effectively with your new hire technicians as a leader, this opinion will change for sure. You'll know if they're indeficient or deficient or proficient in these. You'll know that, and you won't be in the dark about it. So the fact that they're in the dark about it, it elaborates to me that we could be communicating as leaders better with these entrant technicians, and I think that would be a powerful way to improve our ability to retain these individuals and grow them into effective technicians in their careers overall.
Rate the impactfulness of orientation-style training during tech school and or vocational education.
So this question kind of got at the nuts and bolts of my original reason for starting out with this survey. This is the question, right? This is like what we've been setting up for. Is there is there a way to, or is there a reason that this training would be important? There's all soft skills. There was several. I asked for attitude, willingness to learn, work, teamwork, willingness to learn and ask questions, punctuality, attendance, time management while at work, proper documentation, professionalism, cleanliness of work area, and change management, which is the adaptability to change to industry culture. And this was just like the last question where you had a 1 through 5. You had to rate it rarely or not impactful to very impactful. So your options were not impactful, slightly less impactful, neutral, slightly more impactful, or very impactful. And for all of those questions individually that were asked, only 2 did not have an overwhelming response pattern for very impactful. So out of the 804 professionals that were interviewed for this, they primarily agree that all of these are important in orientation style training for new hire technicians. And none of it's how to change a head gasket. None of it's how to rebuild a transmission. None of it's how to do a tire rotation and oil change. None of it's how to orient your toolbox or anything like that. All of it is about those attitude and behavioral items. And none of that, from what I can tell, is actually being trained in any capacity in the automotive industry today. So the industry experts agree that these are super important things for entrant technicians in their training. But we also know that this is not anything that's being trained on in any large capacity. I'll point out the largest one because it's a pattern overwhelmingly. I mean, it's off the chart if you look at the white paper. The willingness to learn and ask questions, the bar is, you can't even see it. It goes so high for very impactful. So willingness to learn and ask questions. Now, that's an attitude thing, but that's something that can be coached. You can't really teach attitude, but you can coach it. And you can explain the why behind it, why it's important for you to continue to learn and continue to ask questions. Why, when you come out of school, to have that humbleness to understand that, like, I have more to learn and I should continue learning for the rest of my career because the industry is going to be always changing. And if I stagnate, I stay in 2007, 2008, that'll be my bread and butter. But that bread and butter is going to be few and far between as time goes on. Vehicles go away, right? You don't see them as often. So, for example, like, I wasn't around for it, but when we changed from carbureted to fuel injection, people probably weren't on board. I don't need all that. I work on my carburetors. Well, now if you work on carburetors, you work on lawnmowers, right? You work on go-karts and you work on four-wheelers. You don't work on cars anymore because it's not, it doesn't communicate over. Same thing happened with like power steering. I'll never have this electric power steering. Imagine if there's a short or some sort of a wiring issue and all of a sudden you're full off to the left. We don't really see that, but we had to learn how that system works. So systems will change, new systems will come in, different things are going to occur in the industry. So that willingness to learn and ask questions, super important to be coached on, mentored on, and explain the importance behind it. I'll just give you the other top 5. So that was number 1. Number 2 was attendance. Proper documentation was number 3. Willingness to work, number 4, and professionalism, number 5. I'll note on the 2 that are newcomers here, which is professionalism and proper documentation. Proper documentation is important in the automotive industry, as we know, because what we document as technicians on that repair order is what the customer sees. And that serves as an actual legal representation of what occurred with this vehicle on this day. So there's that legal record side of it, but additionally, when that vehicle comes back, not for the same concern, but for a new concern, technicians, the first thing they're going to do before maybe they'll verify the concern first, but it's also appropriate to also look at the history. What's been done before and what's been done recently? If that account is poorly written and not properly documented, it's going to hurt the efficiency and effectiveness of that technician's job to actually diagnose and repair that vehicle. So that's very, very important. And professionalism as a technician, sometimes, I don't know, sometimes maybe they don't see it as important. They see it important here, but they're not customer facing. So they're in the shop with their coworkers. The customers don't see them. You can let loose a little bit. But we have these customers' vehicles, and some of these vehicles cost 6 figures. So some professionalism goes a long way. Try not to forget your tools in there. They're expensive. Try not to put smudge marks all over the dash or anything. Let's leave the plastic covering on the seat. Let's use the steering wheel covers. Let's make sure we're putting the mats down. Let's be respectful of the customer's vehicle. They put their families in this thing. This is important. Let's make sure that we're thorough in our work and we're doing our inspection properly. Notice those issues with the tires. Notice those leaking shocks. Notice those other things because, again, there's car seats in the back of some of these things, and it's very important cargo that we put inside these vehicles. And again, they spend a lot of money on these. For some people, it's the most expensive thing they'll ever purchase. So for others, for most people, it's the second most expensive thing that they'll ever purchase. So let's not leave smudge marks and let's not be disrespectful to it. Let's not leave the windows down in the rain or anything like that. So just be professional. Carry yourself with a degree of professionalism. And if you are pulling a car up on the service lane, this is the military in me. make sure your uniform's a little bit straight, right? Let's not look a mess, right? Because if you're getting out of the vehicle, out of somebody's expensive vehicle, and you're looking like a mess and you got grease all over you and you're sweating, I understand you're going to sweat and all that stuff. Just wash the hands before you drive it up front before anybody sees you, because you are handling somebody's very important, very expensive asset to their life that is essentially their freedom. Vehicles equal freedom. Without a vehicle, we have freedom, but we have no capacity to get anywhere that we need to go. So it's a very important facet of all of our lives. So let's be professional about it when we are handling these things.
Yeah, I was going to mention when we were talking about the generational thing on the tech side or whatever, I was going to mention COVID, but I'll mention it here on the customer end. COVID changed all of us, man, as far as expectations. And we all, I mean, it goes all the way from expecting better leadership as an employee. I was part of the Great Resignation. I was in the grocery industry when COVID happened, but I was working on all this. I've been doing podcasts since 2015 in other genres, but I wanted more, man. And COVID kind of just lit that, and all the things all the things we had to go through. But on the customer side of things, talking about professionalism and customer service as a whole seems to have gone downhill. But we are. It may just be that we're expecting more. We all want a better experience, and we're happy to reward that and keep coming back. But I think COVID did a head thing, man, to all of us, where we all expect more on both sides of the coin, man.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it airs to I'll get to the COVID, but setting that aside, just in general, the day and age that we live, you and I, like back in the day, if I stayed in Pennsylvania and you stayed Tennessee area or wherever, we would have never met. We would have never recorded a podcast. We have the internet now. And I've been so blessed to be connected with so many incredibly smart people over the course of the internet. My whole job is online. I work primarily from home, and I get to see amazing people from all over the place. I work with a team that's from all over the world. It's incredible. And it's only done through the power of technology. Without it, there's no way. There's no way I would ever have met all the incredible people that I've met. But part of that technology is expectations will increase, right? Like I said, back when I was growing up, everything was from a dictionary. Everything was from a book. Like there was no way to Google the answer to the question that you have. And when I traveled long distance, because I did a couple of times when I was 16, I had to use MapQuest and a map, right? I had to pull out a map and look for road signs. Road signs are almost irrelevant these days because I need to go anywhere. I travel all the time. I need to go anywhere. I don't even think about where I'm going. I look it up. Okay, it's 8 hours. I got to plan for 8 hours. Like it's rapid. And that's the thing about the internet is everything is at our fingertips, and we have supercomputers in our pockets, and we have any answer to any question we could ever have immediately. It's almost like, why do we debate certain things when we all have a supercomputer that can give us the answer like right now? Like, why would we argue back and forth about is this up or is this down when we can just go, is this up or is this down, and Google and have the answer right there? Now, of course, there's some bias in there, and there's some information that's not totally correct, and there's some education that we can apply to proper research and proper URLs that you want to aim at, and look for the .edu, not the .com, if you can avoid it, that sort of stuff. But the thing is this day and age, everything is so rapidly accessible. I can order groceries and have them delivered to my door. I can order an Uber or a Lyft and not have to worry about calling a taxi anymore. I can do all kinds I can order all me and my wife's stuff for our baby is ordered off Amazon. We can put a registry online and people can just send things to our house. It's immediate. It's immediate gratification. And the society, I think, has come to expect that. And in particular, in the automotive industry, it can't be so immediate because we have to take the time to diagnose. We have to take the time to do the mechanical procedures. We have to take the time to route it into the shop. We have to account for all the other customers. We certainly have more vehicles to fix than we have have technicians to fix them right now. So we're not as fast as the internet, and we're not going to be as fast as the internet. We are implementing these electronic, technology items into the process, online appointments, et cetera, texting, to make the process more streamlined. But it's never going to be as rapid as you can just Google directions to anywhere you want to go. So it's managing those expectations. It's trying to be as efficient as we possibly can, but knowing that the expectations of every service industry has gone up exponentially because virtually anywhere else you can get things pretty rapidly and pretty quickly. Like I said, you can just go online and order your groceries and have them sent to your house using different online formats. It's right now, and it's so fast and it's so efficient and it's so easy. Other service industries, like actual service industries, are not caught up to that standard because we are not the internet. We are not algorithm based. We are people, and we are a team, and we are oriented towards a goal, and managing that's a monster, and we're dealing with changes, and the world changes. Like COVID brought in a whole new level of that because now there's like some danger out there. Now I'm expecting XYZ procedure from you on top of this, and I still want rapid service, and I want to be in and out of here as fast as possible because I don't want to be exposed to anything in here. It was funny because when COVID hit, I realized I don't want to say how gross, but like how gross like the job is. You're getting in and out of cars all day. Different cars touched by different people, and then it goes to a shop and it's touched by 3 or 4 different people. Of course, we have procedures, clean it down and all that stuff. But it kind of woke me up a little bit. I'm like, I could wash my hands more, for sure. I could use hand sanitizer a little bit more, for sure. So, the demand kind of went up with that. So the demand is already like skyrocketing because of the accessibility to rapid access to the internet, rapid access to rapid services. Like, it's insane what we can do nowadays with technology. So the expectation of customers in general, all of us, even those of us that are in the customer service industry, we're also customers somewhere else, goes way up in the ceiling, right? It's up in the clouds, the expectations. But when you put something like the pandemic on top of that, something like COVID on top of that, it jumps even higher because now there's an element of danger. Now I expect a whole lot more from you because now it's not just that you're going to dissatisfy me by being slow or inefficient or ineffective, but you're also potentially putting me at danger if you're not effective with your procedures because there's this mystery virus out there. Of course, at the time, it was a mystery, scary virus. It's sort of cooled down now, but at the time, very scary. So any misstep that you take is potentially a threat to me and everything that I love. So that at the time, it was a very, very sensitive thing. So again, it was skyrocketing the expectations, but then it really went higher with something like the pandemic.
Yeah. I'm going to bring up Joshua Taylor. One thing I noticed in the survey was where cleanliness ranked in a lot of the questions.
Yes. Do
you think it should be higher than it is? Because, and I'm going to butcher this, but Joshua always talks, and this goes kind of to both things, the professionalism as far as how you appear and like the smudges and things like that. And I just totally lost my train of thought with the Joshua. The put your toys away when you're done. He has this saying that he does, and then it ends with put your toys away. That's another plug and play thing. That there was a big trend of making your bed, which I'm sure making your bed. You're very familiar with that in the military, but there's something to that, and I've noticed. I'm a creative man, always have been. I'm left-handed, and the juries. There's mixed. What people think about that. I'm right brain. I don't care what they say, man. I've had a MRI done. It's like North Korea at night over on the math side of my brain. It's dark, but the creative is just. I'm a reader. I'm a writer.
Yeah.
I'm a musician, right? And again, I lost my train of thought. Creative people are usually messy. And I always in high school knew which locker was mine down at the end of the hall because it had the paper stuffed out of it. Man, as I've gotten older, if I don't have a regiment, if I don't have a routine, and I'm not a neat freak, but if things are not orderly and I put things away, even as simple as, I'm pretty routine in what I eat every day. It's steak and eggs every morning, but I wash the pans as soon as I do them. I don't put them in the dishwasher. I do, and I put them away. And man, I feel better. I said all that to say, with cleanliness being of the work area being kind of low on the list, do you think that would help techs or anybody really be more successful? Do you think it should be higher on the list?
Yeah. So I love everything that you just position forward because you're getting at the fundamental basis of our being, and that's the balance between chaos and order, right? Order is something that we we strive towards. It's where society came from. It's the laws, right? It's you got to stand in line to check out your groceries. You got to stop at the red light. You got to wait for the green. Order is good. It keeps us all in line, but too much order, we start to feel constricted, right? When you got like that boss that's like a control freak a little bit, like it's just over managing you, micromanaging you, too much order, and you start to feel constricted. You can't do anything. You can't move. You can't think for yourself, and then creativity essentially dies. Chaos, on the other hand, often construed as or often perceived as bad, because if you have too much chaos and it's pandemonium and everyone for themselves, and I've seen shops that run like that, and everyone's just trying to get their own little nugget and don't care about anything else. But a little bit of chaos is where the creativity comes from, because you got to step outside of the box and you got to think about it differently, orient yourself a little bit differently. You have to get outside of your comfort zone to grow, and that's a little chaotic in nature. So you got to balance back and forth between the two. And I'm very similar to you. I eat the same breakfast every day, 2 eggs with spinach and a piece of toast and some honey on top with some butter. That's every single day for me. My wife thinks I'm absolutely nuts, clinically insane, but I'm very routine in that. But also growing up in high school, my locker was a complete mess. I've always kind of like veered between. I create content, but I'm also logically based because of the military, and I go back and forth, and sometimes I like a detailed plan, but I'm not afraid to remove that plan completely halfway through and start doing my own thing a little bit as I see fit. We have SOPs, standard operating procedures, but we also know when that's not working anymore, and we have to think outside of the box and move and communicate around those things, and eventually find ourselves back down. It's kind of like you're going on this pattern here, and you kind of get one of those, like a little hump in the road, you adapt and you improvise and you overcome, and then you get back to that streamline. So to the thing with cleanliness, I noticed the same trend, and I actually wrote about it in this white paper. It stayed in the bottom 3 and 4 for popularity. For example, what makes a technician successful in today's automotive industry? Cleanliness was in the bottom 3. Only 59 or 53.9% agreed that that's important. For where are the most common areas that today's technicians should improve themselves in to better achieve success? Cleanliness was number 4 at 39.6%. Not a popular thing. And that kind of surprised me a little bit, because I thought it was very important. I worked with a technician in one shop. You could tell his bay. You could tell, because it was the only one that had oil stains on the floor. Every time I went to his bay, I was tripping over things. One time I came to him to look for keys. I couldn't find them anywhere. He's supposed to hang them in the box. He didn't. He had this old cup that had some oil in the bottom of it, and he pulled the keys out and it was dripping. So I took a rag and I had to clean off. Very inefficient. And he made a lot of mistakes. Great guy, but made a lot of mistakes. And I think that, part of his organization was part of that problem. I saw him kicking gasketed surfaces across the concrete floor, which is not good for a gasketed surface. You're gonna damage components doing that. And if you take the time to be clean, to ensure that you're setting those rags down so that you're not going to scrape a gasketed surface across something that's abrasive, to have your little muffin pan or your Ziploc bags and organize your bolts out. That's going to, 1, improve your effectiveness, because you're going to do the job right the first time. 2, it's going to increase your efficiency, because you're going to have a process. And a lot of people think that that's going to take extra time to do that, but it's going to take a lot more extra time to dig through the pile of bolts you have on the floor to figure out which one goes in this water pump. That's never a good day. Been there, done that. That's not the right way. But cleanliness also plays into your personal cleanliness. How clean are your hands when you're getting inside this vehicle? Are you leaving marks in the seat? Are you leaving dust and dirt on the floor? Are you tracking things in and out of this vehicle? Are you using the covers? And cleanliness obviously became a very important factor in COVID, which is also a reason why I thought that this would be a little bit higher. But among the sample population, it just wasn't a very popular answer. Now, it's still viable, because people still clicked the button. They didn't have to choose cleanliness. It could have been 0%, but it wasn't 0%. Right. It just wasn't the most popular thing out of all of them. So I still think it's important to pay attention to, but one of two things. Either they just agree that it's not important, or they agree that it's important but not a big focus because we kind of have that piece down pat. Maybe it's just not an alarming thing that we have to fix right away, but it's still important. So that data is inconclusive, because that really wasn't the aim of the questions. It was more to gauge popularity of responses. The why behind that would require further research. But that's a bit of my thoughts behind why cleanliness was consistently scoring at the bottom of that. But I still think it's important, and I would say the population still does, but just not as important as the other items.
Okay. Well, Chris, a summary, your biggest takeaways from this. If you had to elevator pitch me on your survey and where you think improvements need to be had and where the industry is going as far as technicians, the technician shortage, what would you tell me?
Yeah. Leadership. So what I did in the conclusion of this is I rack and stacked every popular response to every question, and I aligned them by commonality. So I had common themes and popular themes. Common themes were responses that were popular as responses and answers to multiple questions. So like the willingness to work came up multiple times as popular responses that can solve a lot of problems. So if we just get the willingness to work down, we're going to solve a lot of problems because it's more than one question. Popular themes were items that would fix a problem, but not every problem simultaneously, but still important because they were popular because they could solve a problem, not multiple, but a. The common themes throughout this entire survey were the willingness to learn, the willingness to work, attitude, thoroughness, and attendance. That was the most common themes that answered multiple questions, at least two simultaneously. Just one of those answers answered two simultaneously. And they all boil down to the competency of attitude. So attitude is the number one thing that entrant technicians, current technicians, everybody is either deficient in or could use more of or should use more of to achieve success in the automotive industry. And attitude is coached by leadership and mentoring. It's not something that you can teach someone an attitude. You're raising a child. You're not going to you show them the way, but you also have to lead the way, lead by example. It's one of those things that it's controlled a little bit by the environment. It's controlled a little bit by the people around you. If you get around a bunch of positive people, it's hard to be negative. If you get around a bunch of negative people, it's hard to be positive. So it's a leadership thing. It's creating good environments, good working environments, high levels of communication, high levels of praise, good levels of mentoring, good levels of cross communication and resources, that sort of thing. That's the number one thing. The popular themes were time management, ability to adapt to automotive culture, adaptability to changes, technical knowledge, proper documentation, and professionalism. All of those, except for technical knowledge, were behavior-based. So behavior is second place in competency. It's still very important. Those are things that we can train on, but they're not things that we train. I mean, I went through school. I learned some time management through experience, but I was never really taught it in technical school. Adaptability to change and culture, that's just one of those things. You either figure it out or you don't. Not too many people, especially in the automotive industry, are teaching on those things. We teach it on the other side of the counter sometimes with salespeople and with service advisors and customer facing, but technicians don't really get exposed to that sort of training, but they still experience all the changes that we experience on the service lane or on the sales floor, for example. So those are important things to lean towards. And then proper documentation and professionalism. You learn those as you go. And some technicians I've worked with had really bad documentation to the point where like things were getting back charged on warranty because they weren't documenting them properly. And professionalism as well. I've had customers complain that, hey, that technician looked like a hot mess when they got out of my car and they left this thing in the seat. I don't even know what this is, but I don't even want to touch it. It's so greasy. Can you send us the detail? I don't have it. It's a whole mess. So very important. And then the only other competency there was knowledge with that technical knowledge. But that just shows that the area of knowledge as far as competency for technicians is you got it. Like they have the knowledge. Obviously, you approach any technician, even if they have a poor attitude, even if they can't manage change, they're going to fix that car. They're going to diagnose and fix that car. That we can be sure of that. But leadership is the answer. But it's not just good leadership. It's also good leadership knowing that we need these resources, that we need to coach and mentor on these things, that we need to figure out a way to implement this into our day-to-day, not only in the shop, but also it's something that would be highly valuable to be learned while a student, while learning, right? Either as an entrant technician or even better, while in vocational or technical school education, to have access to be coached on some of these attitude things, maybe have a mentor, et cetera, and also learn about how to effectively manage time. There's like, I don't know, several dozen different methods for managing time that one could study and figure out which one works best for them, and ability to adapt and change, to document properly. What does that actually look like? What is the verbiage? How should I be doing that? How to write a coherent sentence? How to be professional? What is professional? Is it just the way I dress? Is the way I act, the way I talk, the way I articulate? All of those different things. Those are things that we can actually tangibly train on, but only if a leader cares about it. That's really what it's going to come down to is good leadership.
Are you seeing any kind of push or are you seeing any of the schools implement more of a soft skill? Because it's just say like in public schools or whatever, regular K through 12. A lot of people started clamoring. The public was clamoring for, why don't we teach personal finance? Balancing a checkbook sounds antiquated, but the math is still the math. in and out, still works. I don't care if it's a checkbook or not. You know what I mean? And that's one thing that we kind of never did. And that was done at home. My dad taught me how to do that. I didn't learn that at school. Are you seeing that kind of clamoring for that maybe in the vocational schools for more soft skills?
Yes and no. The people that I've spoke to, and I'm rather connected in that sphere just from my background in college, and I've kept in touch with a lot of the professionals in that arena. They know it's needed. They know it's important, but the problem is there's just not room in the curriculum for it, period. There's two problems they're facing right now. One is industry change. They're trying to find space in their already tight curriculum to add in the EV, the HEV, the plug-in hybrids, all this new stuff that they have to throw in there, right? And in addition to the old stuff that's still on the roads today. It's still good to know how a hydraulic system works, right? Because brakes are hydraulic and some vehicles still have power steering and some vehicles are like my truck. I drive a 2022 Jeep Gladiator. It is a manual shift vehicle, so it still has a hydraulic clutch system, and you still have to know those things and know how to fix those. So they already have that in the already tight curriculum. They have to add this extra technology on top of it and teach on all of that in the same amount of time. And that's problem number one. Problem number two is the students that they're receiving today are at a different level than the students that they received when I was a student. And this is not too long ago. I started college 2013, 2014 timeframe. They're having to break it down to this is this kind of wrench and this is a Phillips screwdriver and these are channel lock pliers, and they don't have that super basic, what you would consider super basic information down pat like those of us did that just arrived there with that knowledge preconditionally. Of course, I had Votech behind me. I kind of grew up working on things, but kids today, I mean, maybe this is the internet, maybe this is the generation, and this is where it plays into we have to treat this a little bit differently because they're different. They don't have that information. So not only are they having to start earlier, they can't say that they can't have the precondition that, they already know what these tools are at least, or they know how to take a tire off. They know what a torque is. Like they know what this stuff is. They don't know that. So they're having to backtrack the curriculum to teach the ultra basics, the stuff that we used to assume students would know walking through the door. So that's already added to the curriculum, and it's critical because if you don't know that, you don't know anything. You can't learn anything else. But they also have to add all the extra stuff on the back end, and they still have just this space of time. So trying to manage that is very, very difficult. So the challenge comes in is that these are important, and we do need these. But if we have somebody that has a good attitude and good behavioral, behavioral competencies, but they can't fix a car or they can't even take a wheel off, we're still in a tough spot there as far as when you hire somebody into a dealership. So that's the situation schools are looking for a solution for, is how do we manage those two big difficult things as well as start to up our game when it comes to research like what I've conducted here.
Awesome. Is there anything we didn't cover that you want to real quick?
No, I think we've got it. I mean, I've got every page of the white paper spread out here, so we've touched on it all. I appreciate it.
Okay, good. Yeah, this is great, man.